Hey, what's going on? This is The Doug Show. In this episode, we are catching up with Duke. And Duke was back from one of the first few episodes, and this is an update. So currently he's making about $2,500 per month from his 2 sites. And one of the sites is a little older. One of the sites is a little younger. And the interesting thing is the younger site with fewer posts is actually making more money than the bigger site with something like 500 posts, I think, something like that. So anyway, we dig in pretty deep. Duke is super helpful and super inspiring. And we go into like Pinterest. We talk about content. And actually, I'll back it up just a tad. I won't try to explain everything here. But Duke was experimenting with getting Pinterest traffic as well as really being analytical about it. So he was setting up Google Analytics and some other tools to be able to track whether or not Pinterest traffic was worthwhile or not worthwhile. And I published this episode, the actual interview portion, over on YouTube a little while back, like shortly after Duke and I recorded this in the early part of 2019. And there was a ton of interest. So Duke has been super active on my live streams over the past, couple years, basically. And people know him because he's out there being helpful, answering questions and that sort of thing. So that said, Duke has so many comments on that video, and he went back and answered a ton of them. So after the interview, at the end of this episode, I'm going to go through a few of those comments and questions that people asked from the audience, and then Duke's answer. And then I'm sure I won't be able to shut up. I'm sure I'm going to add my 2 cents in too. So without further ado, let's get to the interview. What's up, Duke? How are you doing today?
Well, it's another day in paradise. Even though it's raining, it's still nice. And finally got done with the move that we started back in November. And so we're starting to get on schedule again and get our routine going.
Fantastic.
So it's good.
Well, I really appreciate you hopping back on for an update. So for people that aren't aware, Duke had a success story to share about something like 6 months ago. I'll put a link if you haven't seen it so you can check it out. So this is sort of a checkpoint, and you're a fixture in the live streams that I do. So if you're not there one day, people ask about it and people want to hear the update. So
yeah, it kind of made me feel good that people were asking. It's like, gee, I must have made an impression.
Yeah, you definitely did. I mean, it's one of the most popular interviews we have on the channel. And I guess you're just a likable guy. Back then, you were making about $1,000 a month from Amazon affiliate revenue, and it's been about 6-7 months. So kind of update us. What's been going on?
Well, Christmas season was good, but not as good as I had hoped. Broke over 3,000 during Christmas. The smaller site is doing really well, and the return is really good. The larger site did not do as much as I had hoped. So it's kind of, I wouldn't call it struggling. It's profitable, but it's not nearly the return compared to the smaller site.
Gotcha. And so you have 2 sites. One of them is a little younger than the other, and one of them is a little older. Yeah. Can you tell us just like sort of the breakdown, like the content that you have on each one? And if you, obviously we're not going to mention the sites here, but like if you could give us an idea of like the approach and difference in each one.
The smaller site, which is the older site by 6 months, it is a niche site or a topic site. It is geared towards businesses that use different types of products. Instead of going directly to consumers, I instead went to a business that has a lot of questions and a lot of needs of how to do this and how to do that. And so it is probably 40% informational, 60% money pages.
Okay.
The larger site is directly to consumers, and it's a general niche category, basically a review site. I targeted 22 different product lines, not brands, but types of products. and then did, between 15 and 30 posts per each product. It is probably 20% informational and 80% money pages or targeting money keywords.
Gotcha. Okay. And over there, it sounds like you, if I do my math right, you have a few hundred articles on the larger site?
540, I think.
Okay. Did you write all that?
No. There was a lot of lessons I learned with this larger site that is serving me well now, but was quite the struggle at the time. I didn't write, I might have wrote 10 of them.
Cool. Okay. All right. What I want to do is dig in on that larger site. And when did you start that one?
Last December.
Okay. So last December. So that is like 2017, right? December 20s. Like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We're in 2019, right? Yeah, 2017.
Yep. I get this question all the time, right? So it's like, I found several different product line keywords. Can I create a general site? And my answer is, well, I wouldn't do that, and I never have. But people do that, and I have seen some that make money and they're successful. But usually the cautionary tale that I give is like, well, that means you're competing against like the Wirecutter or other very large sites. And typically you're spread too thin. There's a lot of content that you have to cover and you'll never finish, right? It's like a never ending battle to catch up. It's always a compromise. So again, I've never done it, but from my observations, that's what I see. So what do you think? What did you learn?
Well, I had heard the same, you and others say it wouldn't be recommended, but I'm I have a little bit of a contrarian personality in me. Sure. When somebody says you shouldn't, sometimes I do.
Right.
And I also wanted to test my skill to see if I could. Would I recommend it? No, for two main reasons. A, the competition is a lot tougher. And B, to get Google to see you as relevant for the topic that you are trying to rank for is much tougher. I've made it profitable, so it's not like I lost money or it didn't work, but it was 5 to 10 times the work in order to get it profitable.
Yep. That's a good way to put it. And most people, as you know, they would never follow through as far as you did with the, you're a stubborn man, I could tell.
Yes.
So like you published the 500 articles, you invested, probably thousands of dollars into it just on content without the guarantee, right? Like we're all taking a risk, investing our time and energy and money into it. It's great that you got it profitable, but at the same time, like you're saying, it was just more work than it needed to be potentially.
Yeah. Well, my smaller site up until just recently only had about 70 articles on it, yet it made more money than my larger site.
So just to emphasize again, so it's like 70 articles versus 500 and something.
Yes.
And it was more profitable.
That tells you exactly what you need to know.
Right.
I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to do something with the larger site. I don't know if I'm going to sell it. I might sell it. It's profitable, making about $1,000 a month, so I could make a little bit of change off of it. Or if I'm going to break it down into about 3 different niche sites. Now, so I haven't decided yet.
Now, I can't remember the name of the site, but there was a large site like Wirecutter size, and they were acquired, and the new owners broke it up to like 6 new sites. What was the name of it?
Aboutcom, I think.
Okay.
They switched it to, there's about 6 different sites. Now I can't think of the names off the top of my head.
I think it's like Life something.
Lifewire is one of them.
Lifewire, okay.
Yeah.
So the point is, they, like Aboutcom obviously had like a crazy amount of content all over the place. And they were like, hey, like, let's try this. Maybe it was a lot more strategic. I'm summarizing. Mm-hmm. I read the headline, but I didn't read the whole article.
Right.
So basically they split it up and like profit, traffic, like you could see it. If you just do some investigating, you could see the growth that they had. So that's an interesting idea. And you said it's making about $1,000 a month?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the other site making?
It makes between 1,000 and 15 now.
Okay. So you're about 2,000, 2,500 consistently. Yep. Nice.
Yeah.
And you started the older site at the end of 2017. So within a little, like in about 18 months ish,
18 months,
you hit about $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Nice. Very, very cool. So with the amount of content that you published on the larger site, from a content standpoint, what did you learn about, hiring writers, working with writers, just running that machine of content?
Well, I started off by trying the Upwork method and hired writers. And honestly, I could not find ones that did a good enough job. Mm-hmm. I kept on they would say they were native English speakers, send me something that looked good. And then when I got the real product, it was not nearly as good, and it wasn't native English speakers. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they were farming it out to somebody else or what. But anyways, so eventually I got frustrated with Upwork, and I went to a content broker, a company, and they have done an excellent job for me. And so for about I pay $20 1,000 mm-hmm. for 1,000 words, and they produce great content.
Okay.
As good or better than I could.
Okay, cool. We won't mention it right here, but we'll discuss after, and then include a link if appropriate. So
right.
Put it that way.
Yeah. Later on, I saw that John Dykstra also uses them. So.
Okay, cool. Friend of the show, good guy, John. So, yeah. Okay. Very good. So you started using the content broker, good deal, high quality. So.
Yep. And I still do all my own formatting and publishing, but that's I don't know if that's me not wanting to delegate or if that's because I really like to do it, but that's where I put in my SEO stuff to make it search engine friendly. So
sure.
I don't ask the writer to be an SEO. In fact, I give them no SEO instructions. I just ask them to write. Then I put in the SEO.
Perfect. Okay, cool. And I think it's good. Like at some point you have to do the QA, the quality assurance at some point. So it's a fine time to do it. Right. And then you could put in the portion, right? The SEO expertise that you don't want to outsource. That's your specialty. Right. So
yeah.
Well, onto SEO. When you get the content, actually just take us through the process. What format do you get it in? How do you upload it? What are you doing for the SEO portion?
I get it in a Word docs format, and I just I'll put in the title. A lot of times I've just given them the keyword as the title, so they have the keyword, and then I'll rewrite the title. So I'll put in the title, and I make sure that the keywords in the title and in the URL and the meta title, meta whatever, H1, all that stuff, which WordPress normally does for you automatically. My sites are running, and you've mentioned this theme before, but they're running on the Rehub theme. Mm-hmm. And so, and it uses WordPress Bakery. It used to be called Visual Composer or whatever. So instead of using the new Gutenberg, I just switch it over to Visual Composer, and I'll just paste the article into the content area. Then I'll add an H2 that has the keyword in it. I will make sure that the keyword is in the content once. There will be variations of the keywords in H3s. I'll put in an original image. In fact, I use a Pinterest optimized image, so it's mm-hmm. a vertical image instead of horizontal. And I'll put it all depends if I'm getting lazy or not, but I'll put the keyword in the alt tag of the image.
Yep.
And usually it's best read widgets image.
Right.
And that's my
little
alt
image
tag.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
And then like what you do, the first mention of the product, I'll link it to Amazon. Then under features, I have a content box that I get from Content Egg mm-hmm. that shows features, price, and images. All, you can tab through them and see everything. And then I'll go through and I'll list it once more in a little call to action box at the bottom of the article.
Okay, good. So to summarize some of the technical stuff, so you're using the Rehub theme?
Yes.
Okay, which I've talked about a lot, but partially because you and I discussed it before. I heard it from a couple students in Five Figure Niche Site, and then I checked it out, and it's a great theme. It has the visual or the WP Bakery, so you can do some some custom design if you want to. And then you mentioned Content Egg. So what is that for the people that don't know?
That is also a plugin. There's a free version and a paid version. It works in conjunction with the Rehab theme. They've collaborated together. What that does is it pulls all the Amazon API information for you. You can do it right from the back end. You can put in your product or your ASIN number. It'll pull it right up. You can put in a short code, and it gives you a nice little call to action box or information box of some kind, that type of thing. Okay. The thing I like about it the most, and it's back end of the plugin itself, is it has a tab for all the products that you are covering in your website. And it'll tell you which products are out of stock or discontinued, and you can just go there and replace them and keep it all up to date. And it's 1,000 times faster than trying to do that manually.
Beautiful. Yeah, that is an auditing situation if you want to solve that on your own without a tool.
Yeah.
So with the paid version of Content Egg, is that what you get, like the extra checking?
Well, yes. With the paid version, you get the extra checking. You also get eBay, Walmart. You can have, almost every affiliate program out there, it has connection to their APIs. I use eBay because on my reviews, I give a price comparison. So they can either go to Amazon or they can go to eBay, whoever has the cheapest priced.
Nice. So what's the payout typically on the eBay side? How's that work?
eBay is different. They pay you a percentage of their profit instead of a percentage of the total sale. They pay you a percentage of the profit that they make. It has came out to be very comparable to Amazon. I'm usually between 5 and 6% of the sale price on eBay.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. Is there anything else on the content side or on-page SEO that's worth mentioning?
One of the things I'm doing, and especially working on the small site, is there's your dog. I can't remember his name.
Georgie is.
Georgie.
She's sensing something in the front. Someone closed the door.
Anyways, one of the things that WordPress Bakery allows you to do, especially as it's fitted with the Rehab theme, is you can actually do your own related content at the bottom of the post. So you just pull it up, you can do manual, then it'll search for, you can put in put in red widgets, and every article on red widget, it'll pull it up and you can start adding them. So you have control of your related content. You can do it once. It's done. It's not done by a plugin, and it's done relevantly.
Yep.
So that's very important. On my small site, I get 1.8 actions per visitor. Either it's pages, or it's click-throughs to Amazon or eBay, or it is some type of, they have completed a task of some time on my website.
And how do you track that? How do you track actions per user?
Well, I was using Google Analytics up until this month. You can set up an event in Google Analytics, and you can set it up to track all outbound links, or you can set it up to track links to a certain domain, which then you put in Amazon.com. You can set it up to, it already tracks page views, but you can set it up to track downloads, all kinds of things. So you use events, and then I also use an adjusted bounce rate event, which is a timer, and so it'll ping the browser that the person's using every 15 seconds. So you get a much more accurate time on site. And if they've engaged in your content at least 15 seconds, I feel they've engaged with your content and didn't just come there and go, ooh, this is ugly, and bounce back.
A lot of people ask about how to track this stuff. Was it pretty easy for you to set up?
I used Google Tag Manager, which there is a couple good tutorials on YouTube. And also, if you're a reader, search setting up Google Tag Manager. The analytics code is harder, so I use Google Tag Manager. Recently, I just switched. I dealt with some negative SEO over the last year. Some people just got jealous or wanted to make it fail or whatever. Right. After I did a couple interviews, and I see them come and find me. I'm too transparent, but that's okay. I dealt with negative SEO, and I was dealing with a negative SEO attack, I believe, where they were sending bounce bots to my site to bounce in and bounce out to give me bad user metrics with Google. And that was being tracked. The only thing it could have been tracking, because they were coming in actually using, it was obvious they were bots. They were using Microsoft Internet Explorer 9 and Windows NT or Windows Vista or Windows 7. And it's like, who uses Windows Vista anymore? Yeah, come on. So they were obviously on an old machine that they were just, they did a program. Well, I got concerned, and I would see that my Google referral traffic would drop when these guys would come and do their little thing. So I eventually switched, and I switched out of analytics and switched to server side of PWIC. It's called Matomo, but they provide the server. And so, and it has all the same analytics, and it's $9 a month, so no biggie.
And so by doing that, does that remove the effectiveness of the bounce SEO?
I'm not sure. I am assuming that Google, they have said they don't, but I never believe anything Google says they don't do. They say they don't use analytics, but I noticed that it was affecting my traffic. My guess is they may use analytics as a confirming signal, maybe not a ranking signal, but a confirming signal, which would be, okay, we think we should rank it here. What does analytics show?
Sure. Interesting.
That's my guess. And that's just a guess, and I could be wearing a tinfoil hat,
Right. There's so many factors in the correlation, and it's who knows? So what was the name of the analytics tool?
It's PWIC. PWIC's been around forever, but you used to have to put it on your own server in order to get it to run. It is called Matomo, Matomo.
I typically stick to analytics for simplicity. And then I've actually never, even as data driven as I am, I've never gotten into tracking the clicks and the activity and stuff on the site as much. But a few months ago, I try and keep up with folks, even if I don't do a proper update. But you were telling me about some of the Pinterest experiments that you were doing. And because you had things set up like you mentioned with a tag manager, you were able to get some decent data from the Pinterest stuff that you're working on. So tell me about what you did and some of the findings that you have so far.
What I did, I already had the article. So people who are doing this, if they're just starting out, they probably won't see the increase as quickly as I had it. I redid all my featured images on the website to a 600 by 900 pixel featured image. Now, that's not, when they come to my site, they don't get blasted with this huge featured image before they can see anything. In fact, I don't even have a featured image at the top. It's just the website header and then the title. But then in the content, I have a narrowed down or a smaller version of that featured image in the content near the top. I did that for all the articles. I had an old Pinterest account that I fired back up, and I did keyword-rich description for the account. Then I did 22 boards for each product line, and those were keyword-rich both in the title and the description. And then each pin, basically I used my Google meta description, where you put in the 150 characters or whatever for Google. I used that as my pin description and then did relevant hashtags with it. And so I started out, I was getting just a trickle of traffic without doing anything, between 1 and 5 visitors per week. And I grew that in 3 months to 100 visitors per day. And that happened at the time when Google started all their updates in August, Medic and whatever. Sometimes I would get dinged, sometimes I wouldn't get dinged, but it irritates me when Google does updates and I haven't been doing anything wrong and I get dinged. And so I decided I was going to have a second source of traffic.
Right.
And so that's what I did. Now, it is not the same as Facebook or Twitter or those social media. It is actually a visual search engine. people go to Pinterest to find out how to do things and to learn about what they need for projects they have and everything else. And it's not just women. Believe it or not, I have 45% men and 55% women that look at my profile, which is I got a higher percentage of men than women compared to the site. But there's enough men on there to make it worth your while. And it's not all recipes and, Etsy crafts. Some of my pins are getting repinned like crazy because they're beautiful images of the product. So I did that, and then there's a free version of it and then a paid version of it, but a program called Tailwind that is a scheduler for Pinterest and Instagram, but I use it for Pinterest. It makes my workload about an hour per month in pinning and repinning content and doing the strategies. And basically the strategy is have your own boards, have boards that are related. Say, for instance, you're into lawn care and you're pushing lawnmowers. Well, then you can have an outdoor barbecue board because people barbecue on their lawns or barbecue in their yards, and you attract similar type of customers to what your products would be geared towards.
Nice. So think of the audience, think of the market, not just the product.
Exactly. Think of your market. Who would buy your product? Then think of what else would they be interested in. That it doesn't have to be you. Then you can bring in pins from other people who are fitting that niche. They in turn will do the same for you, and pretty soon you've developed a network and you don't have to talk to anybody.
Which is the goal. That's our goal anyway, right?
Yes.
So, okay, cool. It's funny because, we were chatting beforehand and I'm doing some updates with other people. Everyone is like so interested in Pinterest. There's a student of mine, she's in town. So I invited her over. You'll hear it on the podcast, on the YouTube channel as well. But we were sitting right here earlier and she was telling me about Pinterest. She was telling me about Tailwind and like exactly what you're saying. She spends a little time each month. She batches it. She sets up her whole month and then it's set.
Yeah. I spend about an hour a month.
You said you went from basically, a few visitors a day from Pinterest to about 100 within 3 months. So has it leveled off or does it grow?
It actually has declined a little bit since Christmas is over, but everybody I've talked to that does Pinterest says that's normal, but it is steadily growing. It dropped down to like 70, but it's still 70 to 90 and it's still growing.
Okay.
So
cool. Now, did you notice a correlation between the posts that were being pinned or the most activity with the ranking? So was there a correlation between those? The
correlation I've seen is the more engagement your pin gets, the higher it will rank in the Pinterest search traffic. Okay. It really has very little to do. It has to do with the relevancy of your description and title, but it has little to do with what you've done on your website and how great your website is. It is more about the engagement of that pin. So in all honesty, you could have a really crappy website and make this great pin and you'll drive traffic.
From that point of view, it's all about that image, right?
Yes.
So how did you create the images? Did you do it yourself? Did you outsource it?
I outsourced the first batch. Again, didn't like too much what I got. So then I went and found Lifewire's cousin. It was in the same niche. I don't remember the name of it, but it's one of the other Aboutcom. I found their Pinterest board and looked at their pins, and they're all, it's Madison Avenue. Mm-hmm. They've paid somebody to do their pins. So then I went and took their format, not their images, but their format, how their styling and stuff. And I went and duplicated it in Adobe Illustrator and used that. Different colors, different fonts, but basically the same format.
Okay, cool. And that's interesting. So you found something that was working and then you emulated it without copying it, which I'm sure, yes. There's hardly anything original. I'm sure they got that from somewhere else, right? So
yeah. And then I've done some experimentation since, and I've actually found a really good review template to use. So I'm now using that.
Okay, like review template, like for what?
For review posts instead of a best list for a review post. Basically, a big, huge, beautiful image of the product. Underneath it, with a gray gradient, I have just the product name, like the Acme Red Bomb, and then below that, I have in my branding colors, I have the name of my website. Oh, and then I have a small, under the title, I have a small italic product review and comparison in smaller font and italic, so they know it's a product review and comparison, price comparison, and that's working great.
Okay, very cool. And just to rewind, so you said you had a decent amount of content when you first started on Pinterest. So how many posts did you have?
I was up to the 540 mark.
Oh, okay. So before
I started.
How did you decide what to create pins for?
I did it for everything.
Everything. So just 100%. And then did you put everything into rotation? And I understand Tailwind has some intelligence, so you could repin the good stuff, right?
Yes. I pinned directly to my boards first. So I'd do about 10 a day, 10 to 20 a day. I might do 10 in the morning, 10 at night, until I got all my pins on there. Then I started rotating them through Tailwind and pinning them to relevant boards and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I pin directly first.
Okay.
Don't use Tailwind to start the pin. Use it to pin from Pinterest.
Okay. And at this point, we're getting to area which I don't even know what you're talking about, but I understand. So you create your
eyes are glassing over.
So you create your own. I could care less about Pinterest, but I think I'm going to get into it since I've heard about it so much, and I'm like, you know what? There's probably an affiliate program for Tailwind, right? So I'll check it out. You create your own boards. You created 22 of them. You populated each of those boards with all of your 530 posts. And then after that, you started pinning other stuff into your boards also?
Not into my own personal boards that have my products. I created relevant boards, pinned other products plus my products into those boards.
Okay.
Other people's pins plus mine.
Gotcha. So the 22, we'll struggle through this together. So the 22 boards you filled with your own stuff, and then you created other boards.
Yes.
In which you pinned other people's stuff as well as yours.
Yeah. For instance, if you had,
let's use fruits. Let's use fruits like pears and apples and bananas.
Okay. So let's say you have pears, apples, and bananas boards. Then you could have a tree horticulture board. You could pin your articles from pears, apples, and bananas. I don't know if bananas come. Yeah, bananas come from trees. Yeah. And also, maples and that other people are doing, plus tree care and pesticide or pruning or whatever you do into that board. You could then have, say, a fruit recipes board where, make fruit salad and how to make apple pie and different things. And you can do your apple and your fruit into that one as well. Honestly, if you're thinking about your target audience and what they're going to use stuff for and what they're going to do around the stuff, you can have an endless amount of boards. Okay.
And do you keep creating new boards, or are you you're happy with where it's at right now?
I'm happy where it's at right now. When I started doing Tailwind more, I found I was lacking in some categories, and I can just tell you these categories because they have nothing to do with, they have to do with my audience, but not with my site. There's a lot of clothing websites that use Pinterest. So I did a clothing deals. I'm never going to review a piece of clothing, but I'll do clothing deals. I have electronics. That's a broad. And I have some of my stuff in that and a lot of other people's stuff. I have jewelry and home crafts and food tips. These are all things that would be around some of my products.
So like when you start pinning other people's stuff, do they see that you pinned it and then they'll check out your stuff potentially?
At times. And times they'll follow you. And the good thing about Pinterest, it doesn't matter if you have one follower or 100,000 followers. Honestly, Pinterest doesn't use that anymore in their search rankings, which is what you want, is their search rankings.
Okay. Cool. Because I mean, I remember there was a stretch where I recall, it was a very big deal to have so many followers, but I guess they've changed up their algorithm a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's based on the relevancy of the pin and people's reaction to it.
Okay. Interesting. Very good. And like I said, I'll have to get into it now that I've heard Tailwind like multiple times already in the last couple of days.
The nice thing about Pinterest is actually it converts better than Google traffic. It is not a lot better, but it's a couple percentage points higher than Google traffic.
Okay. And this is tying it all back together. Thanks, Duke. So basically you were keeping good track with the Google Tag Manager. So you saw that at least more people were clicking over to Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't track it past that. I look at it as I've done my job if I've gotten somebody to click to Amazon.
Mm-hmm. But what we can take away, right? So let's say someone hasn't started a site yet. They start a site, they get maybe 30 pieces of content on there pretty quickly. Maybe they need to get more on there, but they get some content published. They can start pinning stuff. They can start that activity and potentially get traffic, long before they're going to get much traffic from Google.
Exactly. In my head, that was one of the things I was trying to figure out is if I was going, because I got some guys that want me to teach this stuff to them. I'm not pastoring a church right now, but old members of my last church. And they want me to teach this stuff. How do I get them to get some traffic even sooner than the 6-month mark or Ricky and Jim's 8-month mark or whatever? How do you get it? And Pinterest is the way you can get quicker traffic.
Yep. And the Christy, like I was talking about earlier, who lives in town, her site, she started it in like mid-October. She's getting, some traffic from Google, but she's been able to really take advantage of like Pinterest traffic, primarily through just smart outreach and being active on Pinterest. So she has like quite a bit more traffic than most people would have in, 3 months time because she's like taking advantage of Pinterest. Like,
right.
It's not going viral, but it's like big for a brand new site because again, outreach, smart connections, and like being active and trying. So interesting. Okay. So one final thing. So you were at very little traffic. You started with Pinterest. You got up to about 100 visitors from Pinterest per day. Like what was the buildup like? Like how long did it take for it to start working?
It took about a month to start seeing a difference. And it was, 25 or so. And it kind of jumped. It was 25 or so. Then, next week it was 35. And then the next week it was 50. And kind of that,
hockey stick.
Hockey stick. Yes.
Gotcha.
Type thing.
Yeah. And I have heard a couple people mention there seems to be like a sandbox period for Pinterest where they, you have to earn your credibility before they start, pushing your stuff a little bit more. So maybe that month or so.
Could have been.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. So from a link building standpoint, can you tell us a little bit about what you've done there?
On the big site, I used a couple services to acquire some guest posts. I did 20 guest posts to the large site. I also used another guy I know who got me 10 newspaper, local newspaper links as well. And other than that, I basically did Pinterest is the only social network I ever see in Google Analytics. Okay. Or not analytics, Google Search Console. At least a portion of your Pinterest links in Search Console. So that's all I did. And the little site, I didn't do a darn thing. In fact, I didn't really do much to it at all for almost the entire year. I'm doing stuff to it now, but I didn't do stuff to it almost the entire year. Just let it cruise along because I was bound and determined I was going to make that large site pay. I wasn't going to lose my money.
Right. Interesting. So for the smaller site, basically no link building at all, right?
No.
Okay. No. And then is that keyword golden ratio based or is it something else?
Probably 30% keyword golden ratio based. The rest was just keyword research. I started off using Keyword Finder. I don't use it anymore. Keyword Finder works fine for informational articles. I think it fails some with buyers' keywords. Its keyword competition tool metrics doesn't work as well.
Okay, cool.
So that's what I did. Some of them were pillar posts. I got a couple really huge pillar posts and some best lists and not a lot of product reviews, but that's changing. So
it sounds like since you did a lot of link building for the larger site, and then you haven't been doing as much and you're making more money on the smaller site. So it sounds like maybe you're not that interested in doing link building. Is that accurate?
I've never been interested in it. And at this point, I'm just not seeing the return on it. There was a time when I used to be able to build links and rank. Mm-hmm. You would see movement. I haven't seen any movement. And so I'm looking at it from a business standpoint. And I can spend $1,000 link building, or I can spend $1,000 on content. Well, $1,000 of content is going to make me more money than the $1,000 of link building. That's just the way I've seen it at this point. If somebody can show me different, I'd love it, but I can't figure it out.
Right. Well, then the other thing is basically whatever you want someone to show you, there's someone who's selling you something who could show you something that'll make you want to buy whatever they're selling. So I totally understand what you're saying. And I mean, for a lot of people, the link building portion, like you said, you've never been interested in link building. That's not as fun. If you find it fun, like you're in a rare group, a lot of my friends, they do enjoy the link building part of it and just the outreach part of it and blah, blah, blah. My observations anecdotally over the last, year, 18 months or something is like the links take a while to kick in. And it's like you have to be consistently getting links over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And then like the links don't kick in all the way, maybe for a year. So it's like you do all this stuff and it's hard to tell, probably because, people like you and I in the past, we built a lot of links and we would see things happen. We would adjust the anchor text. We would add more links and you could just see what worked. And then you could abuse the system where with a long enough timeline, it takes the ROI out of it so that you're left to do something, hopefully that makes the internet a better place versus like, building links that are garbage. So yeah, I think there's a lot of randomness into it and links still help, of course, but it's like, it's hard to tell like what links are helping. And then there's other factors too, right? I think maybe, right? Don't necessarily do this, Duke, but I'm thinking the larger site, maybe it was so competitive that the links that you got were maybe like just a drop in a sea of many other, sites that had tons of links, where like your smaller niche, like you're ranking without links. Like what if you had a couple links to a couple pages that needed it? I don't know. That could be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything that, interesting going on that that I didn't ask about? That
Not really, other than I'm basically doing this full time now. We were already set up fairly well. We, done Dave Ramsey's course. My wife's really good with saving money and not going in debt and all that stuff. So we're debt free. So we're able to do this full time now. So it was 18 months to get to the point. Other than that, I don't know. I think we're doing good. It's fun to be in it and doing it. I've been blogging since 2011, and I have worked at numerous different ways of trying to monetize my efforts on the internet until I came across you and Human Proof Designs and Authority Hacker. I had not cracked the code yet of how to do it. My biggest website, which is my blog, it's probably at 50,000 visitors a month, but it only makes $450 a month on advertising.
Right.
So the return on investment with the niche sites, it's been good for me. It's been a life changer for me.
Nice. Very good. Well, that's cool. That's good to hear overall. And the podcast, which we're going to put this both on, if you're watching this, it's on the podcast too. And then for people that are listening to the podcast, we're putting it on the YouTube channel. So there's some cross-pollination, but we have the luxury of covering and talking about whatever we want. So the financial independence could be cool for us to talk about sometime in the future, Duke.
Yeah.
So if people are interested, please let us know. My wife is really good with numbers too. So hopefully we'll be in the position you're in sometime soon. So just to close it up, for people that let's aim at people that maybe haven't started a site yet and they're thinking about it. So what advice would you give the budding entrepreneur interested in affiliate marketing?
The first thing I would do is get products out of your head. Don't go, I like fishing poles. Instead, go, I really love to fish. How can I make a website that is great about fishing? Or golfing, canoeing, whatever it is you're into, or something you'd be interested in. A product focus just becomes much more difficult to compete and to monetize or get a good return on investment. Secondly, quit worrying about getting it all right. Instead, just do it. I learned huge valuable lessons in my second site, the large site, that I'm now applying to the first site that's going to take it to the next level. Start doing it. You learn by doing. You can't learn by watching another video. You got to start putting it to practice. And that's what I love about Jim and Ricky. I disagree with a lot of what they say, to be very honest, but I love that they're encouragers that encourage people to get in there and do it. And that's why they're successful. So,
yep. Well said. So to quickly summarize, take action. You're going to make mistakes. You can fix it later. And that's the core piece, right? As long as you're doing something, moving a little bit forward, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah. My first blog in 2011 was a blogger blog, and it was ugly.
It's a mess. Yeah. I remember those.
Ugly.
Yeah, I think I had one of those too. That's funny. All right. Yeah. Well, Duke, thanks again. It's been a pleasure catching up. And we'll maybe get something else out on the calendar sometime soon. So have a great day, and really appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
Thanks a lot to Duke. Really appreciate you spending the time chatting with the Doug Show audience. So thank you. I am recording today from the new studio that I'm in. It's the Longmont studios that I'm in here. And actually, it's really my closet. So we moved. And I think you probably heard me talking about this for a few episodes if you're a longtime listener. And it's nice here. I can tell you that when I left Bozeman, when I was leaving, it was, I think, 4 degrees or something like that. And it was just so much warmer down here in Longmont. Now, I got to also mention that Bozeman, it's great. I loved it there, but it was a particularly cold and snowy, 6 weeks or 2 months or so leading up to us moving. So I don't miss the cold. And I know I was wearing shorts yesterday and a t-shirt because it was 60 degrees and sunny. And I looked at the weather in Bozeman and it was, in the teens, just so cold. So anyway, we're here down in Longmont, which is pretty close to Boulder. And I am recording in my closet because we're in an apartment currently. We were kind of moved quickly, so we didn't have time to look at a house or look for a house, and we don't really know exactly where we would want to live. So this was a situation when we moved to Bozeman as well. We didn't know what neighborhoods we wanted to hang out in. We didn't know what we enjoyed in the particular area. So we're kind of going to do the same here. We're going to sort of see what we think of this area and, look around a little bit. So the other cool thing is this apartment building is brand new. So it's a brand new complex. So it's clean and nice and new. The amenities are pretty good. So they have a gym, which has all brand new equipment, very spacious, very tons of room. And it's good as some gyms that I've been to. So that's great. I actually was really out of my routine over the last couple of months because I was worried about selling the house. I was worried about packing, moving, and a whole set of other activities that you have to deal with when you move. And then, all the snow that we were getting. I mean, the moving day, like when the guys came and loaded the moving truck, it was literally like -1 to 0 degrees, like Fahrenheit. So very cold. Anyway, it's cold up there in Bozeman. It gets very cold. And we were fine with it for the years that we lived there. But yeah, it was a long winter for even natives of the Bozeman area. The closet here, like I said, I'm in the new recording studio, and I think it sounds pretty good. Now, the good thing with a closet is there's clothes in here and they're hanging up, so it kind of it's like a natural acoustic, like what is it? It doesn't reflect the sound anymore, so you can get like acoustic treatments and stuff that you may see in recording studios. Usually, it's like foam that's irregularly shaped. And with the clothes in here, it kind of forms a natural barrier between the walls, and there's not that many surfaces. So I hope this is pretty clear. And the other benefit, I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but this is actually the closet that has the like communications box of the house, or of the apartment. So we have like the fiber modem in the closet here. And then I also have my router in here, which is another story for another day. But I have the router in there. And the point is I could probably live stream from the closet and, connect directly to. It's good to have a wired connection whenever you're doing a live stream, just for the quickness, of course. When you're wired, it's going to always be faster than a wireless connection. But the other part is you want to have good reliability, right? You don't want your signal to drop or anything like that. Now, honestly, I don't have too many issues with the signal dropping. We have a pretty strong router, and it seems to work fine. But the other cool thing with this apartment here is you can get like gigabit fiber to the apartment. It was already wired, basically. And it's run by the city of Longmont. So it's fast and it's cheap. So I'm getting like gigabit service for like $50 a month. And it's run by like the city. So I don't have to deal with like Comcast, Charter, CenturyLink, fill in the blank, like any cable company or internet company. I'm just dealing with the city. And I actually called on a Thursday afternoon, and they were installing it in less than 24 hours, and it took like, I don't know, an hour. So it was fantastic. Really good service. And apparently, word on the street, or at least the company that does it, or the branding by the city, it's called Nextlight, and it's supposed to be the fastest like city-run or municipality-run internet service, which is cool. It is very fast. I haven't uploaded any videos yet, but it's something like 10 times faster than the fiber that I was using back in Bozeman. Okay, so I think that's probably good on this tangent, and let's get to some of the questions here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Duke has been just sort of a fixture in the Niche Site Project community over on YouTube, showing up for many, many of the live streams over the past year and a half or 2 years or so. And it's great to have him there. He's actually one of the moderators because he kept showing up, and I needed some help keeping the trolls at bay. And Duke was always kind enough to help. So as we are looking at some of the questions here, I'll just kind of go through them and I'll give people a shout out. So first question, and I'm going to read, but I'll also take out the unimportant stuff. So this is from Greta Van Fleet, and he says, "Hey Duke, I have seen that you sometimes use the Amazon logo in the charts and tables, and Amazon will block your account as soon as they find out. So, a couple things, and I think perhaps Greta has had some interaction with Duke, and basically Duke says, and that's why Greta knows and has taken a look at Duke's site. Now, basically, We try and keep the sites private because of negative SEO, which is another story. But Duke does say that the images and any kind of logos from Amazon are pulled from the Amazon API. And that's one of the features with the Content Egg plugin. So that is sort of the idea there. The takeaway is, and Greta is right, you can't just use logos and the Amazon name while you're in the Amazon Associate Program any way you want. There are specific rules about how you can use the branding of Amazon, and it goes down to color and buttons and font detail and font size and all sorts of details. So if you're unsure about that, it's usually best not to, make up your own button or anything like that. All the details and stuff are listed in I think it's like the brand usage guidelines for Amazon. And I believe you could probably find a link for that in the associates, like terms of service and that sort of thing. The Unbiased Review says, can you please tell, should we upload content on the home page or should we display posts, pages, etc. on the main page? And Duke says this, I personally like a magazine type format of top post, latest post, and maybe some categories with post. For instance, fishing, hunting, and survival, etc. if you're in the outdoor niche. And I generally like that as well. I maybe would peel back and maybe take out the categories. And I always like to have a small about section. So it can be sort of an excerpt or something like that from your actual about page, but I feel like that gives some, authenticity to your homepage, and people can get an idea what your site is about and what you're about. All right. Oh, and that last question was by Unbiased Reviews. Okay. Next question is Aaron Vigil says, how do you let your VA or project manager add in your Amazon affiliate links to your post? And Pastor Duke says, that's his name on YouTube there. So Pastor Duke Tabor. Duke says, I don't. I ask them to write about the article. I insert the links and short codes afterwards. So I actually let my content editor put in the links, and there's just a format for the link. So you don't have to give a person access to your Amazon account or anything like that. All you need to do is tell them the format, and they place in the ASIN, which I don't know what it stands for, but it's like the unique code for a product. And then they put in your tracking ID. So that's it. Very simple. And that's all you have to do. They don't have to get access to your account or anything like that. All right. Grant Hanford says, another good interview. It would be great to hear about the site setup in these interviews. Duke mentions a ratio of info versus review articles. I'd be interested in learning about what else is on the site, nuts and bolts kind of stuff. And Duke tries to answer, actually very lengthy, so I'll get into it here. We don't, and I don't really understand either what Grant is asking as far as nuts and bolts, but for the money pages, Duke has things like best of list and target groups and product reviews, product comparisons like product A versus product B. And then for the info pages, there are ultimate guides or how-to articles, topic relevancy articles, and whatever else Answer the Public spits out. So Answer the Public is basically a content research type tool. And if you enter in just a phrase or a keyword or something like that, it will tell you hundreds of different questions that people ask about that topic, from directly related to sort of secondary topics that are related. Super helpful, especially if you're looking for informational content ideas, just like Duke says. And further, Duke says this: every category I cover is basically in its own content cluster. It's not a direct silo, but they're interlinked based on category, and I'll cross-link when it's appropriate to a shoulder or to a shoulder category. For instance, dog food and dog feeders would be shoulder to shoulder with one another. Hope that helps. Okay, so that was very thorough, and Grant came back and said that's exactly what I'm looking for. And this is, I mean, I get some questions like this pretty often where people, I'm not 100% sure because I've internalized a lot of the details, right? So if someone asks, what content you put on a site, it's like half informational and half product reviews. And you could break it down further, but you can do it however you want. There's no prescription, right? So Duke did it this way, but it doesn't mean it's the only way. In fact, it's definitely not the only way. It doesn't mean it's the right way either. It's just the way that Duke chose to build a site. Further, we know from the interview that maybe some of the choices that Duke made weren't 100% right. I mean, he has a site with 500 posts on it and another site with 70. And of course, I'm assuming the answer he gave here is his, refined, most up-to-date answer after taking action and learning and that sort of thing. But the point is, just because you hear what one person does doesn't mean you should do it that way. It definitely doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. Okay. Wayne Gray says, Duke is very knowledgeable. I really enjoy the interview. It's packed with a lot of information. So not a question there, but just wanted to give Wayne a shout out since he's on a lot of these. Okay. And let me keep scrolling through for some more questions here. Oh, and Josh Brown, just another quick comment. Josh says, congrats on being debt-free to Duke. That's a great accomplishment. And it was work over, this is what Duke says, it was work over time, and my wife deserves all the credit. So I thought that was super interesting too. I have a light interest in the financial independence area as well. So if you're interested in that, shoot me an email, let me know, because potentially that could be a whole, series of interviews that I do. So, all right. Michael Beluga says this. Okay, now I'm really confused. Duke says his new niche site earns more than his quote generic site, but doesn't tell us how general his first site is. Can you give us an example? Let's take pets.com as an example. Are you saying that having different categories like dogs, cats, fish, birds doesn't work as well as just having one niche site about dogs, another about cats, and so on? Why does Google even care? Are we going back to exact match keyword domains? Please explain, guys, as I'm really confused now. Pastor Duke says, no, Michael, take the Wirecutter instead. They cover anything. It's that general. So yeah, I think, one of the dangers with learning on the internet in a, Wild West type environment like we're in, and, there's just people creating videos and podcasts and whatever, and there's like no editorial oversight, and people could just say like whatever they want to say. It may or may not be accurate. And basically, Michael asked a bunch of questions, which is cool. Thanks, Michael, for asking all these questions and YouTube comments. And essentially what it comes down to is you could be getting bad information from various sources, or you may be getting information out of context. So the points that you made, Michael, make sense, especially if you heard some case study or some information about like having a pretty narrow site versus a broad site. And, Duke answered the question well, but yeah, I can see how it could be confusing, especially if you are on YouTube, you're watching videos like the interview with Duke, and then you watch some other videos that completely contradict it. It must be really hard to figure out what to do. So, all right, a couple more questions here, And then I'm going to hop out of here and get some coffee. All right. And let's see. Let's scroll down here. Okay, my buddy here, Quentin. I've known Quentin for a long time. So Quentin Hamp says, glad you discussed the link building at the end and what you're seeing. It's fascinating to see he's getting such a reward from content only. I'm a big fan of link building, but I think folks need to land longer, higher quality guest posts. I'd also agree with the fact that it takes longer to see the impact from link building, and I agree with that. And last thing that Quentin mentions here is, Duke, you should sign up for Mediavine with that site that's doing 50,000 unique visitors a month. I haven't used Mediavine personally, but you're hearing about folks getting really good returns on that. And Duke tried Mediavine, and apparently he had too many international visitors on his site, so it wasn't quite the right audience there. And I think that covers the questions that we're going to go over today. Like I said, I do need some coffee at this point in the day. And let me know if you want to get some updates from Duke in the future, hear how his site's going. And if you're interested in the, financial independence, debt-free sort of stuff, let me know about that too. There's a strong chance I may just do it anyway, but it'll be good to have some validation that other people are interested too. So thanks for listening to The Doug Show, and we'll catch you next time.